Welcome to our first Pygame documentation tutorial. If you prefer reading, please do feel free to go to the official Pygame website, which is pygame.org. If you prefer reading the documentation. Yes, anyway, I won't bore you that much with the Pygame background story about the program and all of that. So if you want to read about that, go to pygame.org. So instead, we're going to jump right into seeing what the Pygame library is capable of. So what we'll be doing is we'll be doing what is called the bouncing ball tutorial. So that is actually one of the first tutorials that you'll see on the website. Yes, so for this tutorial we need two things. So we need an empty Python script, as you can see here on the screen, and then I have a folder here. As you can see, we also need our ball GIF, a GIF. All right, so with all of this, now we can finally start. So firstly, in order for you to use the Pygame library, we need to import the library and be sure to initialize the modules. So import sys pygame, then pygame init. So we initialize our modules. All right, so now we can now start to define some constants or some variables that we're going to need to use. So in this case, what we'll need is we will need the size, and the size will of course consist of the width and the height. So this size we will use it for our screen, so maybe it can be 900 by 600. All right, what else will we need? I think since we are dealing with the bouncing ball, we will need the speed. All right, so we'll need the speed, and we'll also need the color. So in this case, we can use a black background color. All right, so now we have defined these variables that we will use. So now let's finally begin with our program or code, or whatever you want to call it. Yes, so we want a screen to display everything. So screen Pygame display set mode. In this case, we will use the size. All right, so we already defined the size here, so we can just go on and use that. So now if we run this, as you can see, we can now see a black screen, a black lonely screen. Okay, all right, yes. So we'll also need to import our image as well that we're going to be using. So let's go on and import that. So we have our ball, right? So let's import that pygame image dot load. So we saw what our image is here, so it's ball GIF. We can put that here, ball GIF. All right, yes. And then something that we also need to do, we also need to get the ball's rectangular area. So ball rect, ball rect, ball dot get rect. Yeah, like this. All right, yes. Of course, even though we are importing the GIF image, we are not really doing anything with it. So in order for us to get the ball moving and all of that, we will use an event loop. All right, So let's make our event loop. So while one, in this case, this is what we're going to be using. Yes, so when it comes to using event loop, it's very important to understand how these work. So in future tutorials, we will cover in great details how to work with event loops. But the first event that we're going to be using here, it's our sysexit event, which we use to exit the Power Python code, basically. And how do we do that? So for event in Pygame, event get, all right, then if event type Pygame sysexit. All right, so what this means is that whenever we press the close symbol on our screen that appears, then what will happen is that we'll be able to exit the Python code. So just to show you what I'm talking about, so let's go on and run this. Yes, so as you can see, the code is running here. However, if I press the close button here, as you can see, now we have exited the code, as you can see there. All right, so that's what that does. Yes. All right, so now let's go and display the ball. So since we've imported the ball, so let's now go in and display the ball. So how do we do that? So number one, we need to fill our screen. So we have our screen, but let's fill it with a color. All right, so screen fill, and we already did define the color, so it's black. So which means our screen is going to be black. All right, so in this black screen, what we want to do, we want to put the ball there. So to put it there, we use blit. So screen blit, and what we want to put there in that screen, we want to put the ball and the ball rect that we defined. All right, and to display now what we've just put on the screen, we use Pygame display dot flip. Yeah, okay, let's go on and run that and see what we get. Aha, there we go. A lonely non-motion ball on a black screen. All right, so far so good. So now let's finally get the ball moving. Okay, let's close this. All right, so to get the ball moving, it's actually quite simple. We already did define our speed, so all we have to do is we have to use our ball rectangular area. So ball rect is equal to ball rect dot move. So we're moving it, and we're moving it by the speed that we defined earlier. So our ball should move now. There we go. Wow, look at that. Amazing, amazing. Okay. However, as we can see, the ball is not bouncing. So how do we get the ball to bounce? All right. So for this, we'll use if statements. But how if statements? Well, I won't explain in this tutorial how if statement works, but I'll just explain how we're gonna go about to get the ball to bounce. All right, so when it comes to Pygame, we will sort of use our 0, 0 coordinate, which should be on the top left corner here, which is right here. So when the ball reaches here, we want it to bounce on the opposite direction, and when it reaches the side, we want it to bounce on the opposite direction, and we want the same thing to happen also at the top and at the bottom. So how do we do that? So actually it's quite simple. Let's just close this. Okay, so how do we do that? So we're gonna write our if statement. So if ball right left. Okay, so which means when it gets below 0, meaning it's going past, sort of like it's trying to, when it reaches the left side of the screen, we want it now to the speed to change direction. All right, and also now on the opposite side, so ball right, then on the other side, if it becomes bigger than the with what we want to happen, we want the speed to change. So speed 0 becomes the opposite direction, like this. All right. So we can do, of course, the same for the bottom, for the top and the bottom area. So ball right, top, below 0, or ball right, bottom. Of course, the other side is the bottom, greater than the height, like that. So speed becomes the opposite. Let's go and run that. Will it bounce? Will it bounce? Will it bounce? Amazing. All right, guys, so this is how you do the bouncing ball tutorial. All right, so please let me know in the comments if there is any questions from this tutorial. And once again, this is Coach Slice. Please subscribe and stay tuned for the next video.